and also from Brad in Avon. I believe the defense has underperformed most of the year. Blown coverages have been an Achilles heel for this team. I look at the roster on paper, and I can't for the life of me understand the inconsistent play. I feel our talent is too high for this product. Question, is Joe Woods on the hot seat? Mary Kay, it's what everybody's talking about. Where are you on the Browns defensive coordinator?
Well, obviously, there are some issues going on right now, and they reared their ugly head in that game against the Patriots, and they really were outcoached. I mean, when you talk about the defensive mastermind, Bill Belichick, and you put that up against what happened with the Cleveland Browns on their side of the ball, I mean, there really was no comparison. But then you go to the week before that, and lo and behold, they're holding down Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and, making them look like a horrible, horrible football team. And they have also, and it wasn't necessarily against the best teams in the NFL this season, but on 5 occasions have held teams to 16 points or less. So no, I don't think it's time to fire the defensive coordinator when you are at 5-5 with the same amount of victories as 3 other teams in the AFC North, only 1 victory behind the Ravens, who are basically falling apart and playing some really bad football right now. So I don't think it's time for that kind of a distraction. However, I do think it's time for everyone to close ranks and figure out how to make this better. And if that includes giving maybe Chris Kiffin a little bit more responsibility, he's the defensive line coach. I really like what he brings to the table. I watch him very closely every day coach. I listen to what he says, how he does his job. And I really like what I see in him. Maybe they give him a little bit more responsibility. Maybe they get a little bit more input. Maybe Kevin Stefanski has to get a little bit more involved on the defensive side of the ball. Some kind of intervention, I think, needs to take place. There were times this season when John Johnson 3 was basically stuck at that deep post position, and he really wasn't maximizing his potential. So I think there are other things like that that need to be happening. And one of the problems, Doug, is the fact that they didn't have the bye. They haven't had the bye week yet. A lot of those issues get worked out at the bye when you have time to catch your breath, break down all the film, and build it back up again and figure out what you want to do right. They haven't had a bye week, so they're just kind of tripping over themselves to get there. And I think that's part of the problem.
Ohio State ran into a similar issue earlier this year, and they didn't fire anybody, but they demoted somebody, and they made someone else the play caller defensively. I do like your idea of maybe get more people involved, maybe have some louder voices in the room with Joe Woods. I would not put a lot of money on Joe Woods being back next year at this point. I understand maybe you don't pull the plug mid-season, but if you're at this point, they didn't have the talent last year. Now maybe they have it. And that, I think, is why a lot of people are asking this kind of stuff, Mary Kay, because they see the influx of what they did in the draft and in free agency on the defensive side of the ball. They say, how can it be the talent? It must be something else. And then you go to the coach with questions like this along the same lines.
Yeah, I was just going to add real quick, and we can get into this more in one of the next questions. And that is, when you do have your star defensive player coming out and seemingly questioning the defensive coordinator, then I think you have a real problem systemically.
Hey, Mary Kay from TJ in Akron. What did the Patriots identify in the Browns defense that allowed them to shred us so easily? This was the same defense that made Joe Burrow look pedestrian a week prior, and Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah was back. Is it as simple as the players didn't make plays, or are there significant holes in the scheme? And then along those same lines, hey, Mary Kay, a similar question from the 805. We have 2 great press man corners, yet we seem to default to soft zones. Our personnel simply isn't as good in zone, and we see smart teams pick us apart. Why don't we just man up in coverage? Do you think, Mary Kay, there are specific things with what Joe Woods is asking these guys to do that could be fixed?
Yes, I think so. I do think that more press man coverage would be better for this defense, because I think they have the horses to be able to play it. And I think that kind of tighter coverage, which I thought they had sort of turned the corner into more of that against the Cincinnati Bengals. But, Denzel Ward can play that way. Greg Newsome can certainly play that way. So, yes, I think they should do more of that. I do think that they should blitz more, and I think they will probably do that. When JOK gets a little bit more up to speed, he only played, I think, 21 snaps in that game, and he is their best blitzer. But their game plan just didn't seem it just didn't seem right for what it called for. I mean, they just did not have the right things in place for what they needed to do in this game. And I think there were other factors at play. I think that Mac Jones is getting better and better by the week. I think he has great touch on the ball. I think that I just think that he is probably better than what they were anticipating or maybe ready for. I think they thought maybe when Damian Harris, their lead running back, was out, that would be advantage Browns. And lo and behold, Ramondre, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right.
Ramondre, yeah.
Ramondre Stevenson comes in there and just runs over them. They ran for 184 yards. And they found holes. They found the holes to be able to do that in the Browns defense. And that's what Bill Belichick does best. This was a really good chess match from a coaching standpoint. I mean, that they just did a phenomenal job of identifying the weaknesses, of hitting them on screens and some other things. Whatever they found that they did poorly over the last how many ever weeks, Bill Belichick exploited those things, whether it be in terms of personnel, whether it be in terms of, again, with the screen. And then there were just some really good plays made by the Patriots. I thought Stevenson showed good burst, speed, vision, explosiveness. He was good. I mean, he was good, and a good player like that can make you look bad. And I thought Mac Jones was really good. So I think that was part of it too. But yes, schematically things need to change, and each player need to pick up their own performance and find it within themselves. I mean, Miles, he needs to do even more. He's a generational player, and he did get a sack, and that's great. But in a game like that, I think he can dig deep and find even more himself.
Let's stay with some Miles.